Welcome to episode 2 of the now titled podcast. We really mean it, is what we decided on, right, BT?
Breaking news. Personally, I feel like you decided on this and then you drug me along with it. I tried to talk you out of it. And you were kind of just like cult of personality. This is what I'm going with.
That's right.
I don't hate it. I could love it. I haven't fallen in love yet, but I do think it's a nice encapsulation of, how it is not wrong. It's not wrong.
It's not wrong. It's accurate. Give the people, I love the idea behind it, but it did sound like we were trying to form a cult a little bit. You know what I mean? Like,
When we inevitably break up and we like have a falling out and like call her daddy style, you go do your own thing that's more successful. I'll just keep doing give the people and I'll just like bring it back and I'll be like, yeah, I never actually left.
I like we really mean it because I know your concern was that it indicated this is going to be yet another podcast filled with hot takes, but to me, the differentiator was that it's a podcast where we're actually talking about real things. Let's take a step back. For those of you who this might be your first episode of We Really Mean It, that's probably a lot of you since we have 2 episodes now. I'm Jeremy Boudinot, VP of Growth at Tesla. That's Brian Troutschel, co-founder and COO of Ambition. We are fraternity brothers, college buddies, known each other for 20 years, been in the tech world for over a decade, worked together at a startup. We've both led in some ways, like similar lives because we're both white dudes from Memphis who love emo music, rap, basketball, having a good time, tech, working out, Twitter. But we're also very different. BT's a family man. He's lived in Chattanooga for the last however long. Has very different political views, I would say, and religious views than I do. And your boy here is a nomad. I've lived all over the country. I'm still single at age 38, and I've worked for a variety of companies across the countries. Yeah, it's always fun to talk to BT. We have these conversations in group text every week, but we were like, hey, let's go ahead and put them online and see what happens, right?
I think the best inspiration was this is probably the third time this has happened in the last year, but you and I arguing on a rooftop in Mexico with the whole series of people, around us / contributing. And, I hate to say it, but you know, when the significant others are like, you guys should just do this. You should record these. I'm like, we've been doing this for literally 2 decades more. That was a good push off the ledge to just try it out, see how it goes.
Yeah, so we have a good topic for this week. Last week, we discussed the best and worst tier 2 cities in America. I'm really excited for the topic this week, and it is the biggest green flags and the biggest red flags in employees at work. So we, as with last week, we're each counting down our top 3 green flags and our top 3 red flags. And BT and I both worked together. He's hired me. We've each hired a lot of people. We've worked with a lot of people. So we've had some very awesome experiences, some very terrible experiences. And the other goal, I think, with this too, is we want to go a little outside the norm. We don't want to be like, oh yeah, green flag, you work hard. Yeah, sure. That's great. It's unorthodox green flags and red flags. It's those hidden gems to look out for. So let's start off, BT, as usual, we're going to start off with you. And we're going to start off with green flags first. We always like to start positive on this podcast. Let's start off on positive notes. So what is your first green flag?
Once you hit a certain point, career-wise, life-wise, like there's a level of like neuroticism that I think is like necessary and or maybe not necessary, but is a positive. And when I get an email from a coworker or a partner or someone we're doing business with, and it's like 3:15 a.m. their local time zone, I'm like, this person is the real deal. This is like my type of person. I feel like this is counter for most people, especially well, actually, I'd say barbell, like the younger generation and the older generation. But I appreciate someone who at, 4:12 a.m. is like, I need to send this fucking email. I need to get this off of my brain into that person's inbox. So that's my first one. It's like the middle of the night email that was like they just had to turn the next motion on whatever the action item is.
I do love this one. And this is, again, I don't want to give away one of my top three, but back in the early days of my career, this was a classic Jeremy move that I think a lot of people hated.
I'm going to save a comment about that because I think I know where you're going, but you and I can both agree. Like, there's a level of like, okay, this person is about that action. When they're hitting you with the 3 a.m. email, they're locked in.
I want to establish too, I think a common theme of a lot of our green flags is we like unhinged. Like, I like someone who, because you're unhinged if you're sending an email at 3 a.m. Like, something's off. You care too much, but it's a good thing. So, like, if I get an email from you at 3 a.m. and you work for me, I fucking love you.
Just to be clear, it's not like people need to work till 3 a.m. It's just that, like, whatever's going on in your brain, the creative process, the deal you're chasing down, the thing, all of a sudden it occurs to you in the middle of the night, and you're like, I have to take action on this thing. I'm not waiting until 9:15 local time to fire this over.
My number 3 green flag, and it's a big one. This was the monthly bill on my student loan payment in November of 2014. And for those of you who don't know me, I graduated from law school with $140K in student loan debt. And the payments on that over a 5-year term were $3,475. At the time, BT, I think my take-home pay at Ambition was like $3,475. We were like a seed round startup. I think I was making $45K. So what I'm going into here is, if you are in some sort of dire financial straits, if you're in over your head, if you have a mortgage that you're starting to pay, if you're married to a hot wife with expensive taste, or a hot husband, if you're the breadwinner, you're a woman with expensive taste, if you just had your like 3rd child, if you have some sort of outstanding financial crisis you're in, you're going to be my guy, because here's why. You have to work hard. And I'm actually going to tie this back to my brother. He and I were at a concert last time. I'm actually doing this pod from his house in Austin. And I told him what the topic was. He literally brought this up as his first green flag. He shared with me when he was getting interviewed for his first job at Paycom as a sales rep. His boss who hired him told him later, you actually had a very average interview. I wasn't that impressed with you, but then we ran like a check, and we saw that you had no savings and you had a car loan that you couldn't afford to pay off. So we knew you were going to work hard. So we hired you. And sure enough, he was like a 4-time like President's Club winner by the time he was like 25, 26. So moral of the story is that huge green flag, being in dire financial straits. BT, what do you think about this?
It's a tale as old as time. Like, if the dude rolls into the meeting at the coffee shop in like a $87,000 truck, I'm like, this guy's gonna sell some shit. He's gonna move weight, whatever it is. I don't know. The only thing I'll say is I kind of hate this stereotype, but it is true, and every single time I've run into it, it's been absolutely true. So I can't fight it. I think you're right. I lived through the point of, worked with you in the point of your life where you did have that stress. It did manufacture insane 3 a.m. emails. So like, that was positive. Also a lot of positive work. I think overall it is a green flag.
All right, let's go to your second green flag, BT, which I like a lot. So go ahead.
I need people to email like a human being, and I'll almost turn it into like the inverse, but like, the green flag is if you're emailing me, like you text me, then I know you're going to be good, because I know you can connect with people. I know you're a human being. when you run into a counterpart who's emailing like it's 1972, or they're writing a Victorian era novel to you in email with like, you know, verbose language, they're fucking out. Like, you can't work with that person. You don't want to work with them. That's a red flag. Maybe it's a yellow red flag, whatever. But like, I don't know if you have someone in your life like this, but like when you get the no subject, like actually no subject in the email and just 10 words, all lowercase, no punctuation, direct to thought or question, that's what we want. I don't want to navigate through the rigmarole of like whatever's in this email. I just want direct to the point. What do you need from me? What can I do for you? What are you doing for me?
I'm gonna call some exceptions though, because there are some important exceptions here. So at my last show, I managed some strategists who were closing big deals for us in influencer marketing campaigns, and we're talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars, all that good stuff. So in those cases, one of my best strategists, she would send a really epic, like comprehensive outlining the strategy. I put like an hour of thought into just this email because I'm obsessed with the idea of running this campaign for you. And that I loved. That was like, it reflected super well. I would say like for like things like internal emails, yes, like you should be like super concise. If you're probably emailing a founder or like if you're doing some like quick external emails, yes. But if you're like getting in the weeds with someone, if you're in sales and you're really trying to show like subject matter expertise and comprehension, then like, or if you're in customer success, same thing, then it's probably better to have more meat on the bone.
I think you're right. But like, you and I have both worked on huge deals, complex deals, either side, from whether it's working with a big brand or an influencer or whatever. You know, I come back to it like the best things to ask me, and I think the most success I've had asking other people for business or to work together or whatever, it's when it's dead simple. It's like, I want to work together. Do you think it's interesting? Question mark.
Yeah, that's fair. So let's go to my number 2, green flag. And I'm a big fan of this one. You sent me this earlier. Me too. And
Look at this guy.
This is one. I don't know if you can post this one on LinkedIn, but I'm gonna post it. And it is being based. Green flag all day, every day. I think it's funny because I think it reflected a couple things. One, high degree of like focus on just making money. Number 2, work ethic. I think the work ethic was really strong. And number 3, independence of thought. If you're a base person, if people don't know what base is, it usually means you lean kind of right wing and you're
I feel like
slightly.
you're stealing base. I feel like you're trying to steal base right now.
What do you mean?
I think there is a level of like, you have a philosophical foundation that is some of those things you said, but I don't know that it is uniformly a conservative like standpoint. I
That's
do
great.
think like an independent thinking probably true, and like a maybe there's like a high degree of desire for success, whatever. Like, I do think those things are right, but like, I don't think that's uniquely politically like centric. Maybe there's like overlap.
I think there's an overlap for sure, but I agree because I could see someone. It doesn't necessarily have to be your party affiliation or your political leaning, but I do think if you have a strong philosophical foundation that is pretty like deviant from the mainstream,
Yeah.
and it tends to be more focused on like, I would say like traditional old school values, then you're based. So
Like,
you could say RFK is based in a way, right? 'Cause he's, and he's a lifelong Democrat.
riff on where you're going here, because like you said based, and I was like, hold on, I gotta lock it.
you
What
you
I
didn't highlight it in yellow in the outline, so I knew you were going to come in with something on this.
for like for the whatever millennials I just want someone with like a manifest destiny fucking mindset. They're like, I'm going to take that hill. And I have like this deep seated belief that like I need to do it and we can do it. And I'm getting it done. And whatever the wrinkles of like the winds of change and what's cool right now and what's popular, irrelevant to me. Like I'm on a personal mission to excel. That to me is like kind of more of this. Like Alex Jones is the craziest motherfucker on the internet, but like he's doing that thing. Whatever it is, disagree. Most of us disagree with him. Some of you all like him. It's like he's going 110 miles an hour.
I want to go now to your number one.
Ultra green flag. Look at these guys. If I call you or we're texting or we're on Slack at work and you're like, hold on 1 second, I gotta finish this set. I'm all in. The exercising and or working out during work hours, ideally like while you're working, to me is the ultra it's a ultra power play. I have a guy who I've worked with for years, and this has happened multiple times. We'll be working on a deal together, going back and forth on our negotiations. So for our side, and he's like, dude, just hit PR on the squat. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm in a document right now, redlining shit, and you're squatting. And ultimately, I think about end of quarter for us in the sales world, certainly in like the SaaS world where we're working with customers. When I do the last day of, I think, every quarter, and I've done this for probably at least 3 years, is I just take my laptop to the gym and I just hang out all morning. And basically that whole day is just me like retroactively acting on stuff that's coming in the last mile of deals, right? It's like someone's coming with a last minute request. This thing has to change on legal. This price isn't good enough. And we're just flexing. And in between, while I'm watching Slack or my inbox, I'm just lifting whatever's in there. And I'm just hyped up, just staying at like a peak stress level and then responding in the moment. And if I find out that someone else is doing that, I'm all in. I don't care how good they are. I believe they're going to be good.
Everything's right on like you hitting your number at the end of the quarter for the company, and you choose to spend it in a gym, testosterone maxing.
Testosterone, results maxing, end of quarter, hitting the target, hitting the fucking number. I think the science would back us here too. Like you're a workout guy, I'm a workout guy. You're just putting yourself in a better chemical state when you're doing that. You're getting all of the positives, and then you can take those into a warlike situation, aka negotiating a deal at a moment's notice.
That's true. Like your resting heart rate's like 45, you know what I mean? Like beats per minute. Like you're just not stressed because your body's just like chilling because it's used to doing like 1,000 pull-ups a day. I'm with that.
Living in a state of war.
Yes, exactly. I love that one. I'm gonna go now. Speaking of living in a state of war, I'm going the opposite route with my my number one pick. So this is my number one green flag, and it is past addiction to stimulants. And like ideally weapons grade amphetamines. Like I don't like, okay, you drink a lot of coffee, that's great. I do that right now. It's fine. But
you're doing work PEDs.
Doing work PEDs. And that was me for like all 4 years of Ambition. I was a total amphetamine addict. And I literally was taking like 100 milligrams a day at one point by the very end of it. And the benefit of it was that I was working 80 to 100 hours a week. So talk about like the 10,000 hours of mastery while I like, you know, got there in like 2 years. Actually, BC, let me ask you, man, what was it like? Can you describe maybe at the end, because I've never actually asked you this, what was it like working with me in my last like year there at Ambition right before because for those who don't know, I had to quit Adderall right out. I went to rehab like 3 months after I was let go from Ambition because my addiction was so bad. But the last year I was there, what was it like working with your boy when I was just added out all the time?
I worked with you, like you said, in this hyper amphetamine fueled period. And I guess to answer your question directly, I'll indirectly, the beginning was exactly as you described. Like, you know, a person who is doing, producing, adapting exceptionally quickly. And that is not like dissimilar to how you operated even before we worked together, which is why we wanted you to work with us at Ambition. The last year, or call it, the wind down period of that, it's tough. It's tough to be in a work, and in our case, friend relationship with someone who's going through, the burn down phase or whatever you want to call it. I'm sure there's technical terms for that, because now you're dealing with a erratic personality, a person who is extremely inconsistent with how they're operating, both like personally and professionally. In my view, and I'd love to hear your thought, like, you're dealing with someone who's at the raw end of all the emotional, mental synapses. Like, they've just all been burned down to the fringes. And like, I don't, by no means am I the victim. Like, that was all, you were living through that. You were living through and ultimately fighting back and turning that around 180 degrees. But yeah, it was tough to work with you. It was miserable to work with you.
I remember those days well, and I was miserable too. That's the problem. Was I,
Right.
it was year 4, and so I've been going all out for 3 years. I've been sprinting for 3 years prior, and at 14, we were growing. We were finally succeeding, and I still had the student loan debt on my back, felt the weight of the world, but I felt, and anyone who's dealt with addiction can speak to this, I felt like I had no way out. I felt like I had to live this lifestyle, and that was the only way, because that was the only way I was going to succeed, because I was so dependent on Adderall. And it was really tough because I was producing, but then I would like sleep all day on like a Friday and wake up at like 2 o'clock on accident. And you guys would be like, where the hell are you? And we got to this point where we were growing. So we had other team members who were coming up, and they were like, I'm sure y'all were like, oh, this is not going to work.
That is when it really broke, I think. That's a
Yeah.
great point, because, for us in our relationship and that history, there was enough trust still and enough like earned deposits from before, where it was like, and none of us, to be clear, we didn't know this was happening at the time.
Right.
We knew there was some new change in like how you were operating, and like, that example of waking up at 2 is a really good example. But yeah, when you're working with someone where this is happening, you probably don't know.
Yeah.
You probably don't know that's happening. You may see these signals. And in that case, unfortunately, like you said, all of a sudden we had a lot more team members, and it wasn't like, we all understand what's going on. It was like, dude, this guy he's a wild card. He's a wild card now. I don't really know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
But then, like, I certainly thought, and I'd like to hear your perspective on it, but like, you, the person, ignore the work product, became, I thought that you were just going through a roller coaster all the time.
Yeah. It was it was a constant roller coaster. Work was almost my only outlet. I was in a bad relationship at the time, all that stuff. But it was rough, man. I mean, yeah, anyone that bomb stages of addiction, can attest to what it's like. You guys were extremely supportive of me. The other side of this was, if you're a past amphetamine addict, what I've learned is that I didn't ever have to be that way. Like, you can actually go out and have a hugely successful career and be just as productive as you were on Adderall without Adderall. And I was able to do that in Nextiva. That was like the next company I worked at. I had the opportunity to do that, where I was working insane hours during our Pac-12 launch for like 8 weeks straight. And I probably worked harder there than I actually ever worked at Ambition. And it was just like, I wasn't drinking, no Adderall, just like raw, like just had to do it every day.
Cool.
Really, yeah, I felt liberated, if you will. I felt like, oh, I didn't never needed this stuff. Like anything's possible.
You think you had to blow up to rebuild, or do you think that like someone else who hears this could be like they can figure out a path that doesn't they don't the plane doesn't crash on the ground. They figure out like a way to avoid that part. Because you bounce back spectacularly, but you hit the ground hard to bounce back.
Yeah, everyone has a different bottom. You don't have. It could be you just realize on your own, you wake up, and no one else might know it besides you, but you could just be like, I am like, you have this existential crisis internally that pushes you. For me, I had to like burn down everything around me. I had to like lose my job, like break up my girlfriend, get rid of my car, go to the psych ward. I had to burn it all down. I'm like just that way. I'm a truly exemplary extreme person. Some people,
Based
yeah,
if you'll say.
yeah. I've tried to, people who I have talked to kind of shared with me what they're going through. I've encouraged them to like, because I've quit other things when I did not reach that point. I've quit other things when nothing was burning down around me. I just knew internally that like this had to happen. I knew who I was. It can go both ways. I think, ideally you don't burn everything down. You have an internal moment of clarity, a divine, intervention, if you will, or you're given that moment of clarity and you can turn around. And honestly, it's up to that person, by the way. You can't, as their friend, you can try to recommend, you can kind of maybe give them some insight, but it really is incumbent on the individual to know it in their heart of hearts. And that's like just the way it is for everyone. But so I would say like, I would actually say a past stimulant addiction is the ideal, because that means you're wired to work hard. You've been through the gauntlet. You're on the second mountain, if you will, which is a term that some people use. And you've been through some like challenging times. You've come out a lot. You make a point that it doesn't have to be stimulants. It could be anything. Anyone who's gotten through like the drug addiction or alcohol or whatever, that's a good signal.
It's a level of personal perseverance, right? Like, damn. And it's a deep spot for you to go. I do think there's probably a ton of people early in their career, mid career, restarting, who I think would love to hear that. Like, dude, you can be a badass on the other side. You can, like, that to me is the point to take away of like, you're talking about the level you're putting up, the hours, kind of year 1 through 3 with us. What is almost a decade ago. And then to be on the other side of crashing and be like, I don't need these things. I still can do all these things, whether it's without the hours or whether it's more focused or whether it's more efficient, but you still had the juice. Like you still had the thing that made it all work before.
Exactly, man. Yeah, it's well said. And so we spent a lot of time on this. We can move on for sure, but definitely I would still say green flag at the end of the day, my number one. Let's get to our red flags, man. These are some fun ones here. A little bit less heavy maybe in the discussion, but that's all to the goods. So do you want to tell people what your number 3 red flag is, BT?
And look at how you have this totally like censored out. I mean, it's titles. Like, dude, if you have a title, first of all, a founder of a company does not care what you want your title to be. They don't care what your last title was. They just want people who can get shit done. And I've worked with a ton of people who it is important for them. Jeremy, I think it was important for you. Like, and that's all fine. But at the end of the day, what the co-founder or the founder wants you're working with, or might want to work with, is she wants a person who's just going to like take on and own problems and fucking deliver. Like, that's what they want. They don't care if your title is VP of X, director of X, person. But what everyone, or what the red flag for me is when I get connected with someone for a role, for a, in an opportunity, for a referral, and it's like, their name, comma, some dumbass shit. I'm just out. I'm not in. I don't want to be in. So yeah, it's titles, man.
So I went a different route with my number 3 choice. I mean, you're talking about titles. I'm talking about a little thing called ethical non-monogamy. And so, BT, let me ask you this: the 3 individuals on this picture, would you like if one of these guys walked in? Do you think you'd want to hire one of these gentlemen at Ambition?
You gotta elucidate me. I don't even know what I'm dealing with here. Whatever trap you're trying to set for me, I'm trying to not be a part of it. What am I stepping into here?
So for those who don't know, ethical non-monogamy is a fairly new and I would say very misguided type of relationship that's being foisted upon the community by people. And it's people who are in a relationship, but there's a third person who's in the relationship. It can be any, combo of people. First of all, a couple of reasons this is my red flag. Number one, shows basically terrible decision making. Like you're just in this like ill-fated, relationship that's never going to work. Number two, look at all the things you have to do to be in this relationship. Like
I hate whatever I'm looking at. I hate whatever I'm seeing. I despise.
This is a full-time job. I can barely handle one relationship out of time. Like, how are you going to how are you going to have 2? So, that signal there in terms of like, time being able to dedicate to work, focus, things like that. I would also say from a personal standpoint, I think it's just morally deleterious. I'm very against it. I don't think it makes sense. I think it's against our biological nature. You're saying you're smarter than like the last 2,000 years of human civilization has proven.
Are we doing this now? Are we doing this now?
Yeah, let me get into it. I mean, literally, dude, this is the way it's worked in human civilization for 2,000 years. And you're saying, nah, there's this better way that no one figured out. Everyone, the last 2,000 years of human history was just, misled. I have figured out this better approach. So I think there's a little, like, you kind of have to be a little bit delusional to believe.
How pompous of you to innovate on relationships is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things like, okay, technologically innovation, sure, but like you're innovating on like, one of the most core aspects of humanity from the last 2,000 years. I don't think there's a leap to be made there, buddy. I think it's already set in stone. So that's my take on that.
That went in such a different direction than I expected. I have 2 thoughts. One is a question, or one's a comment, one's a question. Or one is, the comment is like, I think you make a great point, and I was not familiar. You don't have to deal with this when your company is based in Tennessee, that much at least. I think there's an interesting conversation to be had that like you're basically referring to religions and how they've kind of like structured whether it's moral codes or whatever. And I do think they kind of sit as evolutionary systems that like the strong survive. There's like a Darwinistic effect on like why those have persisted, and the ones that persist have like they self-reinforce that these things work, which propagates that thing going forward. That's very interesting to me. That can be a whole other conversation. But the comment I wanted to make, or a question to you, is like, is the red flag, this is a very specific one, but is like the red flag also just anyone who comes in and tries to like sell everyone else on some weird like gimmick culture, MLM, like that to me is the red flag. Like anyone who comes in is like, oh yeah, you gotta be on raw milk. Like, I'm like, don't stop. Don't try to sell me on this thing. Like, it's like the people who, you're going to know if someone does CrossFit because like, they're going to tell people they do CrossFit like that. And then they're going to try to get you to come to CrossFit.
That's an interesting one. I'm gonna get it. You know what? I'm gonna save my comments on that for my number two red flag because it's
Okay.
kind of related to that.
You want to skip me and go straight into it?
Yeah, we can do that. So, this is my number two red flag right here, and it's people who are too on trend. So, and this kind of relates to the CrossFit thing or like anything where you're like super into some niche like culture and you feel the need to share it with people. Like, I actually really, it's funny because I didn't even think of it that way as aligning, but yeah, like I'm not a fan. Like, like this whole thing, if you're trying to do this dance, if you're trying to like be a part of this whole thing, I don't trust you.
This specific dance? This
If you're
specific
trying to do
thing?
this specific dance, I do not trust you at all. It goes back to the woke thing where you're like,
I was gonna say, I
yeah,
feel like you're not based. Like you're not.
yeah,
You don't have that entrenched foundation. Whatever the foundation is, certainly you're trying to push one foundation. I'm pushing more of a. You have some roots that you're tied into, but if you're listless, if you're directionless, and you're just jumping onto the new identity and the new trend, which could be the weird E&M thing, or could be whatever fad diet shit.
or as our friend Mark Andreessen called it, the current thing. If you're like,
Current thing.
if suddenly, you're in February 2022, you put like a Ukraine flag on
Here
your
we go.
LinkedIn
Here we go.
profile, yeah,
Damn it.
current thing, buddy. If were like disinviting your relatives to Christmas because they weren't vaccinated,
Here we
it's
go.
quite fun, current thing. So yeah, anyone, but I agree with you because I actually have buddies who are super hardcore liberal, and they're very well grounded, and I respect it because they're immune to like any trends or like societal winds that like are pushing in a direction that is not aligned with whatever their core like deep down beliefs are. So I respect that. It's based, if you will.
That's why I reject your I reject your Ukraine feedback, because I've been hawkish since '01. I've been on this. It's it's not a new deal. Why are we
That's
spending $1
fair.
trillion if we don't want to use that stuff?
That's fair. That's fair. For hawks like you, Ukraine was like you were like that was not like a new thing. That if you were anti-war and then suddenly you were pro-war, then
Right.
different deal. But
That's the new thing. That's the new thing. That's a great point.
yeah. Well, let's go. I want to keep this moving. Let's go to your number two thing, BT. Which
We're taking the intensity way down.
we're gonna dial it back so people
We're
aren't.
dialing it back. But like when you see, so there's like this, I feel like there's a good thing that's happening where people are realizing like what you're looking at right there is it's the digital world. It's the ones and twos, and it's it's not real. And like what really matters is the physical atom world outside. And when you see someone in the atom world, IRL, whatever you want to call it, like, and then you're like, oh, I saw that cool thing you posted on LinkedIn. I liked your article the other day. It's like, dude, we're in real life right now. Like, let's connect. Like, don't tell me about the thing you saw that I said. Like, that's a fake person. That's not real. Like, let's be here in this moment. And yeah, that's a red flag. Like people who are too plugged into whatever is been posted or whatever your company said on LinkedIn or X or whatever. I just am turned off. It's like I'm out. And what you want is authenticity, and what you want is real human connection. And I think more and more people crave that, whether it's in a workplace relationship, whether it's in a partnership, working together on a deal. Like they want to ultimately build trust. And, if you're out there in sales, if you're early in your career, the things I would advocate for is get in person, whether it's with your customer, whether it's with your coworkers and peers. How do you build real relationships? That's how you're going to advance. Obviously, you're going to have to deliver results, but like that's how you make that deeper connection that I think is going to be more meaningful.
Yeah, I really resonate with that. It's funny because I've been trying to get offline a lot more recently and like just have in person, everything in my life as much as possible. You can't build real relationships, digitally. You can't. I mean, I think what we're seeing is that, COVID was like the peak of like the digital world, right? 'Cause the real world was shut down. But people, I think, felt the pain of like, this is not a satisfactory replacement and never will be. So as we've gotten further away from it, it's almost like we're like we're breaking all those bad habits and those like chains that got built up in our minds during COVID. Go have a real conversation with someone, call someone at least.
Voice time. We talk about that a ton. Like I'll pivot this into my last point because like it's like the setting meeting culture. It's like the we can only meet on Zoom culture. Like we have a thing in admission now. Like if there's an issue, just voice time. This used to be a thing. Pre 2020, it was like I don't have to set a 60-minute Zoom to discuss this problem or opportunity or issue or whatever. It's like I'm just gonna I'll either see Jeremy or I'm going to call Jeremy and we're going to deal with it. We're going to have the voice time. And like, we made up a whole series of like norms around that. It's like, we need a meeting. We need to set a Zoom. Everyone has to be there. We got to find the time on the calendar where everyone can be on the Zoom. And like that one creates all this slack in the system of like how long it is until we're going to like connect however many people. And then two, it's like, dude, I don't want to live in fucking 60 and 30-minute blocks. Like human beings were not meant to like, be on this call for exactly 60 minutes or 30 minutes and then hit end and then click the next calendar invite and jump straight into the next thing. Like the context switching and the mental load, I think is just dumbing us all down. To your point, we're just like hamsters on that wheel. We have to communicate. We have to collaborate. But yeah, if every meeting that the ultimate red flag was if every meeting that someone schedules with me is a 60-minute block, I'm like, Christ, like this is not it. Like what are we actually trying to accomplish?
I love that Googled 60-minute meetings. I've actually never seen this before. And the entire, like literally every article on page one is like why 60-minute meetings are awful. So I agree. And definitely to the point of like, first of all, human beings aren't meant to, this is a whole other rabbit hole, but I don't think ADHD is actually real. I don't think ADD is actually real. I think.
Take this take.
Yeah.
Look at this corner.
It's very simple. Human beings, going back to biology, were never built biologically to sit in front of a screen for 8 hours. Even 1 hour is like insane. Unless I'm talking to someone super interesting about something super interesting like you, this is basically like a voice time. So yeah, just no 60-minute meetings. We have 15-minute meetings at TextLive. Usually we just call each other.
Voice time.
Yeah, voice time, man. So love this one. Agree with it. Don't be the 60-minute meeting person or, everyone's going to hate you. If you want to troll people, then do all 60-minute meetings. That's a move, but yeah, don't do it if you're trying to further your career. So let's get to this is my number one red flag, BT. And
unleash it. Unleash it.
I'm going to say this with like a caveat. I've worked with some MBAs who are excellent thinkers and business strategists. I'm also going to say with the qualifier that I've dated Harvard MBAs.
You bring in multiple angles of experience here.
Yeah, all
professional and personal experience.
That's right. And there was a person on my team who didn't go to college, whose business acumen was probably 1,000 times higher. It's like studying war versus fighting in a war. I'm saying like, oh, cool, everything there was to know about the Battle of D-Day versus like, oh, this guy actually was like literally storming the beach, getting shot at. Yeah. Who do you think knows more about war? It's this dude.
I work with and know many folks who have these credentials. I don't think they're a disqualifying factor for them being good at their role or being a high impact, but I do think I do think there's an element of participation award now for a lot of folks who have thought that was a requirement to be great in whatever setting, corporate, startup, venture capital, whatever. And I think you're right. I mean, certainly if you look at the Y Combinator founders or the community there, which I'm a part of, like the encouragement I think across the board would just be to get to the trenches, like go join a startup, go start something, go do. And by doing, you will learn a lot of these lessons at a level that is frankly hard to simulate or teach. And I think you're spot on. So nothing against those folks. You're not wrong. Once again, if in someone's title on LinkedIn I see MBA, comma or comma MBA, it's a yellow orange flag.
Fair. And I agree with your point about like the CEO that I'm at now. He didn't go to college. He went and worked at Twilio. He was the youngest hire ever at Twilio, and it served him very well. Let's put it that way. It's written all over the way we operate as a company, and all very good way. Cool. So those are our top 3 green flags and red flags. I definitely encourage you to, like, if you have comments or thoughts. We had some great feedback last week. Some people I think called out some cities we missed. I think Cincinnati was the city that was hated.
Multiple comments on Cincinnati. Toledo, I don't even know if that's a tier 2, but Toledo was a shocking mention.
Ohio just getting rocked in the comments.
I think out of Birmingham. I also am not sure if that's tier 2, but people have a wide variance on what they think tier 2 is. Sacramento was interesting.
Okay. I like that. Lots of people too, like, hating on the Nashville takes, but I stand by it. So
hey, same. I got a couple harsh words there, but I mean, like you said at the beginning,
yeah,
we really mean it.
We really mean it.
Really
Sorry, I'm not swayed. We're base. We're not swayed by your pushes against us. So real quick lightning round, BT, current events. We went a little bit lighter on the topics this time, but I like these topics. And I'm going to start with you. Do you want to take it away with your topic about college essays?
Well, what I got, the parents who listen to this, they're going to hear, they're going to go to this event sometime. And I was at this recently, and it's like basically the school talent show. And what got me thinking, because you get these kids up there and like little Timmy or Sally or whatever, and they're doing like the a cappella Ave Maria in front of the crowd, like in front of, whatever, their peers, their parents, their grandparents. And it's like, when we were going through college, you had to write the essay. It was just over some trauma that you went through. It was like, I fucked up this thing in 3rd grade, and I've had to fight tooth and nail over the next 9 years to get here. And I need you, University of Tennessee, to know this. I can battle through, just systemic embarrassment. But I don't know if kids still need that. Like, I don't know if like bombing their a cappella solo is going to give them the ammunition to write an essay that's going to get them into an Ivy League school. We had that stuff, and we could use that. Now it's going to be like some AI generated, here, what did you overcome? Well, it's not that I overcame that I had to sit by myself for 4 weeks at lunch because no one wanted to sit by me. It was like, whatever ChatGPT put together for me. So I think these kids, one, probably don't have to go through, this like internal suffering that we did of like figuring out what that pivotal moment was. And two, I think they're missing out. I think they're missing out on what that means for them, how that can, to your point, give them some grounding in life.
I think you and I were different in that I was like a super high achiever, like driven high school student. Like I was like straight A's, like
national. You say that.
Yeah, like
you say that.
Yeah, like hardcore. Like I want to get into like Vanderbilt. I got in Vanderbilt, but sorry, I had to be douchey there. But like, it's funny because I didn't really think about trauma as like I didn't like. I mean, my parents were divorced, but I didn't write about that in my essay. I think I was more like, look at what a stud I am in my essay. But I think like I would tell the kids, just get used to failing. Just keep failing. Good job. Like, you failed. Like, go ahead and fail some more. I think you should be encouraged. I'm like, oh, good. You bombed your a cappella group. Like, cool. Go do something else that's really hard and fail that too. And just keep failing, and like, don't be a pussy. You know what I mean? I think tying back to the Adderall addiction, I think fear of failure is what drove me towards addiction a little. And
Ooh, interesting.
I used Adderall as a hedge against fear of failure. I mean, fear of failure can be healthy a little bit, but if taken to the extreme, and usually if you're like a high achiever type kid, there's an extreme element around it, and you need to be careful about it. So, and then if you fail, you can use that as your sob story and your admissions essay to get into Ole Miss. You know, I mean, you go ready for 4 years. You could tell me better what the helicopter parents are like, but I don't know how much parents are preventing their kids from failing or encouraging their kids to fail. Like, how do you? What's your parenting style for your kid? BT.
Coach a lot of sports. It's interesting to talk about high achieving, have this like, you were the dude attitude, especially since you were a nerd. But as a dad who coaches a lot of stuff, like we just hit the phase where like kids on my teams will cry when they don't like win important games. And like, I actually love it because it's like when the kids are little, they're like, they don't even know the score, and like it should be fun. It should be totally about like, we're having fun, we're learning to play soccer or whatever. Great. It's all good. Everyone should do that. But then you hit this point where all of a sudden, like the kids are really into it and they really want to win, and they're like actually disappointed when they lose. And I've seen this in multiple different sports now where like all of a sudden they turn this little mental dial, and it's like, I want to be better at X. Like we just got our asses kicked, and like I'm going out and like I don't want to lose this thing. I'm like, that's sick. That's a great worldview, right? Like it's like I'm gonna go put in whatever. It's not 10,000 hours because they're children, but it's like I'm gonna go work at this. And I think it's awesome. I think it's a healthy thing to be happening.
Yes.
Kept in a healthy perspective.
Yes, I agree. It kept a healthy perspective. You failed, but like it drives you to get better. You're Michael Jordan getting cut from the sophomore basketball team. There's a million stories like that. It's you basically can either channel it into drive to perform better and work harder and grow, or you can let it destroy you and you can, give up or turn to some dark sort of alternative.
The question is Timmy doing the Ave Maria, is he going to be Ed Sheeran? I don't know. He could be. He could turn it around. Or he could use that moment to get into, the University of Tennessee with mediocre grades because he got through that trouble.
I love it. Parenting wisdom from BT on episode 2. Love to see it. We're over time, but thank you guys for listening. Green red flags. BT, any fun weekend plans for you? What do you got going on there? Chat.
I just love hanging out with you. This was awesome. Appreciate you having me. I feel like it was a real connection, digital connection, but real.
Right.
Can't wait till next week.
Can't wait till next week, man. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. This is Jeremy Boudinot and BT signing off. We really mean it, and we hope you subscribe. See you next time.